last 3 weeks giving these workshops. Hope you found them useful over the last couple of weeks. Just a bit of housekeeping at the start. Just make sure you mute your mic, and any questions you can put them into the chat box. So without any further ado, Laura, on with the topic of building healthy habits and mindfulness.
Yeah, and thank you very much. And thanks again, everybody, for joining me. If you haven't seen me before or haven't heard my voice before, my name's Laura Keeley. I am a registered health and performance nutritionist and founder of Bridge Nutrition, which is a nutrition consultancy business. And the last couple of weeks, I've been with you guys kind of talking all aspects of health and wellness, nutrition. And this week, we're going to move on to the fundamentals of actually putting all of those things into practice. So, you know, we kind of understand now what we should be eating, the foods we should be focusing on, the exercise we should be focusing on. But now we need to actually see, well, how do I build that into my day? You know, everybody has very high hopes, especially this time of year. You know, we're in January, where people want to build better habits. They want to get healthier, or maybe get fitter, eat a little bit better. But we often see that come February or March, those habits have kind of gone by the wayside. And a lot of people go through this cycle year in and year out, and never really getting past those first few weeks of these new habits. So I'm going to talk all about that today. I'm also going to talk about a stress management technique called mindfulness. Maybe some of you have heard it before, maybe it's a completely new concept to you, but I'm going to introduce the topic of stress. You know, we need to learn a little bit more about that before we then can understand why we might need mindfulness, or maybe I'll get a better buy-in from everybody if they understand why we need mindfulness. So if you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat box for me. Thank you to everybody who actually popped in questions already. I see we've actually got 25 questions in just from the sign-ups. That's brilliant. I may answer some of those questions throughout. So if I do, you'll get your answer, and I'll remind you at the end then that question was answered. Now, some of the questions came in last week, some of the questions that came in were more related to the workshops from the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to ask if Stephen would pop in the links to those YouTube videos, because we did record the workshops if anybody wants to watch them back. So let's kick off tonight, folks, and do ask me questions as we go through. We do have time at the end, and I'll stick around for however long to go through everyone's questions. I do want to make sure that you do get the most out of these workshops, and that you get your questions answered. So tonight, over the next 45 minutes, we are going to talk who we are. People may not realize it, but it is the sum of our small daily actions that make up our overall health. Excuse me now. So I'm going to move on then to how to build healthy habits and break unhealthy ones. So, you know, I'm sure maybe we all have something that we shouldn't be doing, that we know that's not very, very healthy for us. And I'm going to take you through kind of a 4-step process and how to kind of focus on building the good ones and then breaking those bad ones, because we all have vices along the way that we could improve on. And, you know, it might only be a small, seemingly insignificant thing, but if you can change it, it could have very, very good positive effects on your health. Then I want to move on to the topic of stress. Okay, what is it? How it affects our health? Why it's unhealthy to be overstressed? I want to talk a little bit about cortisol. Maybe, again, that might be a new topic for some people, but I do want to talk about cortisol. And then I want to move on and talk to you guys a little bit more about spotting the signs of stress. So stress just isn't kind of getting a bit exasperated or angry. There's a lot of different factors that actually show if you're stressed. So I want to talk about those as well. And then on to the topic of mindfulness, why it's such a powerful tool for stress relief and anti-anxiety and things like that. And you know, how we use it as well. So I'm going to take you to 3 really simple mindfulness exercises. So hopefully we'll all be bought in on the topic of mindfulness by the end of this workshop. It certainly is something that I found very, very useful working with clients. You know, talking at different like stress points. People have different stress points, different anxiety points, and I find mindfulness is a really, really good kind of tool to have to actually help with that. So this is a slide that I've shown on the last 2 workshops about essentially showing that our health and wellness isn't just about, you know, how far we walk or run every day, or how many fruit and vegetables we eat every day. It's far more complicated than that, okay? And we've several areas that make up our wellness. And we talked about our physical, obviously, our nutrition, environment, social, our emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, and of course, mental wellness. But I suppose tonight we're going to focus more on our environment, the social aspect of it, and our emotional wellness, and talking about kind of, like we said, around those daily habits, stress and trigger points, and then tools to actually manage that. So the first topic is our daily habits, okay? And when people come to me and they want to make changes in their lives, they want to make changes, possibly they want to lose weight, or, you know, they're training towards a goal, maybe a fitness goal, or maybe they just know that they're not healthy, that they don't feel healthy in themselves. And they feel like, you know, they would just like me to hand them a meal plan or something, or just tell me what to eat, Laura. And that doesn't address the issue, because we're all, every single one of our days are mostly routine. You know, it's very, only if we go on maybe holidays, or you're away on a work trip, or maybe it's Christmas, that we get thrown out of our routine. But I'd say for nearly 80-85% of our year, we're in a very similar pattern every day. And it's that pattern that will determine how healthy we are, because it's all those little small things that, like I said, it may seem insignificant, but when you add them up every single day over and over and over again, that will determine how healthy we are. So when I work with people, we address the small things. So you need to think to yourself, if you want to be healthier, if you want to lose weight, or if you want to, you know, I suppose, kind of quit unhealthy habits, things like that, you need to address the things you do daily, okay? Because like I said, the majority of the days made up a very repetitive routine, and this will determine how healthy we are. So even something down to, maybe you don't drink enough water throughout the day. It doesn't have a direct impact on your health in that day. You know, one day without drinking the adequate amount of water isn't going to make you unhealthy. But if you repeatedly do it over and over and over and over and over again, that has a cumulative effect, okay? So, you know, if you do for several years, you may find that you have, you know, the negative effects of long-term dehydration, okay? Very much the same as if you smoke, okay? So if you smoke, you don't notice the damage that, you know, the I don't know, the handful of cigarettes that you have every day. You're not going to notice. It's not going to have a direct impact on your health that day. But if you do it every day for 30 years, yes, you will see the very negative effects that will have. So you need to, and we're all kind of aware of that. I think smoking is a good example, because we're all very aware of the long-term negative effects of smoking. So you need to kind of flip that on its head and think of, well, what could the positive effects of eating enough fruit and veg every day be? The positive effects if I eat enough fiber every day, the positive effects if I drink enough water, the positive effects if I get enough exercise or movement in during the day, and the positive effects of stretching every day. You can think of the small daily healthy habits that we should focus on as something that will directly and immediately impact your health, because it probably won't. But when you do it every single day over a long period of time, it most certainly will. So this is why we need to focus on building good habits, having the good habits every single day. And again, they may seem very insignificant, but they will have that cumulative effect that they'll have a major impact over time. So this is where I would have spoken about this, I suppose, in the first week, and we talked about habits. And you know, our habits, they're quite learned, okay? They're automated responses. You know, as much as a lot of people, when they see their phone flash, they'll pick it up straight away to check what was it about. Did they get a message or something like that? Or perhaps when you go into your sitting room, the first thing you'll do is turn on your television. You're not thinking about turning on your television, you just do it. Much like when you walk into a room and the light's off, the first thing you'll do is turn on the light. But why is that? It's a habit. It's something you do constantly. Perhaps it's, you know, every time you have a cup of tea, you've got a couple of biscuits with it. because you associate them together, and that's the habit there. So, you know, they're automated responses. Habits by definition, we don't think a huge amount about them, which is why it's, I suppose, so hard to break the unhealthy ones and harder to build healthy ones, because you have to retrain yourself to actually think about it. So if you do actually want to understand your habit, you need to learn the function that the habit actually serves you. Okay, so what purpose does that habit have for you? And you know, we talked about it before. We were saying maybe some people who habitually overeat. Okay, and we know maybe overeating, it's unhelpful, it's unhealthy, it's not really serving a purpose, or you may not think it's serving a purpose, but perhaps overeating for you would be coping with stress. Okay, so if we respond, we're talking about stress in detail tonight, which is great, but if we respond to stress with the reward of food, okay, that will become our habitual response. It will become the response that we have to stress. We switch and we go to overeating, okay? And then we may get to a stage where we actually can't manage our emotions without including food, okay? And then that's rewarding us, it's rewarding our... The thing is, if we remove that habit, so if we just remove the overeating, the stress is still there and we don't have, so it's very, very hard just to stop doing something. So if you're someone that does overeat in a response, in an emotional response, you can't really just remove the food, because you haven't actually addressed the issue. You haven't addressed the stress of it. So in order to break a habit, you might need to find a new way to achieve the same outcome. Okay, so that's kind of a better way of managing stress, instead of just removing your reward. And I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. I'm going to talk about the 4 steps around habits. But essentially, you need to actually, I suppose, change your habits. You need to address to what function, or know what function that habit's giving you, okay? So just to outline, a lot of people think like a habit takes 21 days to build, and you can't build it in 21 days, it's not going to stick. That's kind of rubbish, okay? Habits can be anywhere from 18 to 254 days to build, from the research that we've seen, okay? So please, when you're building habits, when you're trying to build your habits, you have to give it time. Giving it 3 weeks and saying, oh, it's not going to work, that doesn't work, okay? And it's not even about as much as like how many days you put it in, it's about how frequent you do the habit as well. So the more frequent you do that habit, the more likely it is going to stick, okay? And the more consistent you are with that habit, the more likely it is going to stick. So looking at that, we talk about the habit loop, which is kind of the trigger, behavior, habit, and reward. And this is broken down into 4 paths here. Now, there's a really brilliant book out there called Atomic Habits, and these are steps from that book. Okay, so if anybody is really looking significant habit changes in their life, if you're looking to give up smoking, or you're trying to lose weight, or you're trying to even build a business or improve your work life, anything like that, I recommend this book. It's all about being 1% better every day. And, you know, it's something that I've said for a long time, which is you can't overhaul your life and expect everything to change at once. And if you can just make one small change or one small improvement, 1% of it every single day, you'll find yourself in a very short time that bit better, and using that as motivation. So I just want to explain, why do we have habits, okay? Or why do we stick around habits, and why do we keep doing things over and over and over again, even if we may not want to do it, all right? So first of all, for habits, you have a cue, okay? So that straight away, a cue for a person, for a habit, is a piece of information, and it's going to suggest to you that there's a reward to be found, all right? So imagine if you open your press and you can smell a biscuit, okay? That to you is a cue, all right? Or maybe you walk into like that, a dark room, and a dark room is a cue to you because you think that if you're going in, you're going to want to turn on a light, okay? So that's a cue for you. Or maybe you see your phone light up, or you see your phone on your desk, and that's a cue for you, all right? It's a cue that you should check your social media, or maybe you should check your Facebook, all right? Then the second step coming off of that, all right, it's the motivation to change something to get the reward, all right? So you've had a cue, something's going to cue you to do something, and then you've got a craving to actually do it, All right, so think of it, if you open the press and you smell the biscuit, now you've got a craving to taste the biscuit. If you walk into the room and it's dark, you've got a craving. And that's the word we're going to use around a craving, okay? You've got a craving for the room to be bright so you can see. Or maybe you get a craving like that, you see your phone light up to see if you have a message, or to see if you've had a message on Facebook or something like that. So that's the craving. So kind of being aware of there's something there that you want because you've had the cue. And next thing we have the response. Okay, now the response is either, it's an action or it's a thought that you need to take in order to get the reward. Okay, so we're still working towards that reward. So the response will be to pick up the biscuit, all right, because we've had the cue and the craving for it. So now the response is, okay, I want the biscuit. Or perhaps it's to turn on the light because the room's dark, or it's picking up your phone and opening Facebook. So we have the physical response. Maybe it can be a thought response either. And then we have your reward. All right, so that's the satisfying feeling you're going to get from the change, from the response. So that's usually how every habit goes: cue, craving, response, reward. And understanding that is really the basis of understanding our habits. Okay, so habits can be everything from going to brush your teeth every single morning to turning on the television when you walk into the sitting room. It can be having dessert after dinner. Like, it's pretty much everything that we do without thinking of too much. Okay, but it works on these basis of these 4 steps. And once you can understand these steps a little bit better, you can work to either build better habits, healthier habits, or you can work to break unhealthy habits. All right, so that's how you think about some of your, and I suppose think about even one of your own habits right now in relation to that. Can you see the 4 steps walking through it? So cue, craving, response, reward. That's how they work. Now, remember, just with that reward as well, that comes if it's I suppose after we have it, after the habits carried through, there may be a thought of whether we do that again. All right, so if it's a bad habit, we may have a guilty association with it. If it's a better habit, we need to reflect on it and say, I need to use this motivation to make sure I do this again. So it's about, again, it's actually about being very mindful of it, which we are talking about that topic again or tonight as well, but it's about being mindful of our actions. So how do we build better habits? How do we actually ensure that, I have a habit that I want to build, and I'm going to do it? What actions should we take? Okay, so basically with that 4-step pattern, when we need to try and change our own behaviors, okay, we need to do it's just 4 good steps that we can take, and that's making the new habit, making it obvious, attractive, and satisfying. Okay. And I'm going to talk about removing barriers, something that we did speak about in week 1, about when we touched on this topic of taking barriers out of your way. But the first thing you do is make it obvious. All right, so let's take eating more fruit, for example. Okay, eating some fruit, eat more fruit in your diet if you want to. I recommend, you've heard me talk lots about fruit, recommended 3 portions of fruit a day. You have to make it obvious to yourself. So a big thing is, I will speak to clients about this, and they'll say, I just find it very difficult to eat fruit. And first thing I'll ask is, where's your fruit bowl? Now, it'll turn out that either 1, don't have a fruit bowl, 2, keep their fruit in the fridge, or 3, the fruit bowl is in kind of the far end of the kitchen, or it's on top of the fridge, or it's just, you'd have to basically look for it. So the first thing you do is, if you want to eat more fruit, you get a big fruit bowl and you put it straight on your kitchen table. Fill it with fruit, okay? You're far more likely, as you're passing that table, to pick up some fruit. As you wander into the kitchen to maybe look for a snack, to pick up the fruit. If you think, oh, I'm kind of craving some biscuits or something, first thing you're going to see when you walk in is the fruit. So straight away, you're retraining yourself to think. So that's what you need to do, make it obvious. Now, second, we make it attractive. Okay, if you try and change something in your diet or in your daily life, you have to make it something that you'll actually like to do. All right, so if you're trying to eat more fruit, but you hate kiwis, there's no point in going off and buying 3 punnets of kiwis and putting them on the table, because you're just not going to eat it. So start with something that you like, start with something that's tasty, that you've eaten before. Start small. Again, I'll relay this even to veg. People will go off and buy 17 versions of veg when they're trying to, or 17 different varieties of veg when they're trying to eat more vegetables, but they don't like half them. And they're trying to just make themselves do it because they know it's healthy. Instead, just stick to the ones you like for now. And you can try, once you have the habit of eating the ones you like, you can try different ones then and try to bring them, trying to expand it. There's no point in trying to do everything at once. So start with the fruit you like the most, and then you'll actually eat it. Okay, make it very easy for yourself. So don't go off and buy pineapples that you have to top and tail and chop down and core. I don't know if you've ever had a fresh pineapple, but it is a nightmare to chop up and put in and get ready. It's not an easy fruit to have in your diet if you're making it from scratch. So if you're trying to increase your fruit intake, don't make it a chore for yourself. Make it handy. Apples, oranges, pears, things that you can just grab and go. Make it very easy. So that's the next step in forming that healthy habit. Okay, don't create that needless friction. Remove that barrier, and then you make it satisfying. Okay, so that's a big one. If you like the fruit you've picked and it's easy and it's handy and you feel good about sticking to, I've had my 3 portions today, that's going to give you a really satisfactory result and it'll motivate you on to the next one. Now, these 4 steps, they can be applied to pretty much anything. All right. Okay, so another example would be if you want to cook more meals at home, if you want to cook more meals from scratch at home, that's your new thing. That's a habit you wanted to bring in 2021. You make it obvious. Let's take the first step. Make it obvious. So pick a recipe at the start of the week. Be clear on the recipe that you want to cook. Go and buy the ingredients. Okay, make sure you have all the ingredients. Don't get home and see you're after leaving 3 or 4 things down the shop where you haven't got a specific utensil you need or something like that. Be really clear, be really obvious. And then if it's a case where you plan on cooking it maybe on a Monday or Tuesday night or whatever it is, in the morning, take out the pots and pans and the utensils that you need for the recipe. Leave them up on your stove or on your countertop so you'll see it. So you'll see then, okay, I'm going to cook dinner tonight. No, I have my stuff. I have it's going to be a prompt for you to go and cook the meal. Make it attractive. So stick to a recipe that you've had before, that maybe it's spaghetti bolognese or lasagna or I don't know, fajitas or something like this, a recipe that's tried and tested, that you like all the ingredients and you like the taste of it, and then that makes it quite attractive. Making it easy, make sure it's a recipe that's within your cooking skills. Don't try and flambe anything if you're more of a novice cook. Make it, I suppose, something that isn't too out of your reach, but also will be satisfying for you to make. Okay, so when you put it all together, at the end of it, you're going to have a homemade meal that's going to be nutritious, and you're going to have made it yourself. You're going to be happy with it. You're going to like the taste of it. It's going to be satisfying. It's going to encourage you to do it again. And if it's more of a physical exercise thing you're trying to do, or you're trying to get walking more maybe, so where you'd step with that. So your new habit is, I would like to walk, I'd like to increase my walking every day in 2021, or I want to make sure that I can get my 10,000 steps or whatever it is. So make it obvious to yourself. So with this, I would leave your runners by the door, or leave your runners pretty much somewhere you nearly trip over them, because that will be your obvious cue that you need to walk, okay, that you're going to walk, somewhere you can see them. And make it attractive. So I suppose try and get walking maybe a friend or family member, that way you can keep each other accountable. If you walk on your own, maybe get headphones and download a podcast or some music or an audiobook, so you're going to be entertained on the walk. If it's a case where you're I suppose in making it easy as well, making that point, don't go and try and walk 3 hours 5 days a week or 6 days a week, or go hiking 4 days a week or any nonsense like that. Make it really easy on yourself, like 30 minutes 5 days a week. That will cover your exercise requirements. We learned about that last week. Okay, so making it really easy for yourself, 30 minutes, 5 days a week. You don't have to kill yourself. Okay, you don't have to come in sweating and red face or anything like that. A brisk walk is very good for you, as long as it's done consistently. And making it easy on yourself also includes getting a good warm coat, a hat, a rain jacket. It's Irish weather, we're in the middle of winter. Making it easy on yourself isn't going out and getting drenched to the bone and coming in rattling. Just get a good warm coat, invest in a good raincoat, a good pair of boots, and it takes all those barriers out of your way, because then you don't think, oh, I don't want to go outside, it's raining. You just outside in and you're fine. And then that makes the whole experience more satisfying. You've stuck to your whatever amount of walks you've set out week 1, week 2, you do the same and you keep repeating it. So that's how we build new habits. So just remember those 4 cues: obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. If you're building your healthy habits and you haven't got those in place, it's going to be less likely, or it's going to be a lot harder to stick to. Okay. Now, in the reverse of that, okay, how do we break unhealthy ones? So you can just, it's basically just the inversion of the first 4. So if we want, I'm going to use smoking as the example here, folks, okay? But if you want to break an unhealthy habit, if you want to stop doing something that isn't good for you, you got to make it invisible. Essentially, you cannot see it, or you got to try and make it as invisible as possible. So if it's smoking, and again, this is the example I'm using, don't have cigarettes in the house, don't have a secret stash, don't have them under the mattress, or in the kids' toy chest, or whatever it is, or in the garage. Don't have any in the house, full stop. Okay. Now make it unattractive for yourself. Now what I mean by that is that make it hard. Have rules set around that if you do smoke, all right, you have to tell somebody. All right. So to me, straight away, like that would mean that it would put you out of your comfort zone of actually having the cigarette. So make it really unattractive for you to do it. Go and you have to tell someone in your house. Now, hopefully everyone else will be supporting you when we're trying to break unhealthy habits. You should have your support system there, but you have to go and tell somebody. Now, making it difficult. All right. So it's not easy for you. You don't sit in your sitting room and smoke. You got to go outside the back door. All right. And you have to stand at least 5 foot from the house. So just putting these rules in place. Like if it is a case where you do end up smoking, you end up, reverting on the habit that you said you weren't going to do, you have to make it more difficult for yourself. And then that way, making it unsatisfying. So even having like a monetary penalty there. So you have to put, for every cigarette you have or had, you have to put 10 euros in a jar or something like this. It's just the case of making it harder on yourself helps break the unhealthy habit. This can be the same. You can apply this as well if it's a case of, I don't know, you're trying to reduce your takeaways. Okay. So essentially, if you want to stop ordering so much food in or opting for more fast food, excuse me, make it invisible. So that would be removing any takeaway pamphlets from your house. That would be removing apps like Deliveroo and Just Eat or the local chipper from your phone. So deleting those apps. If you don't have the app, you're less likely to be prompted, okay? Deleting any takeaway numbers from your phone as well. Make it unattractive, okay? So I suppose if it's a case where you're ordering in takeaway, you have to have some kind of a penalty around it, or you're only allowed to order a certain food or something like this, making it difficult as well. Again, that would be removing all the apps from your phone, making a deal with someone to keep you accountable in the house, so they'll actually call you up and say, or they'll call you back and say, we shouldn't be ordering this food in. We said we weren't going to do it. We said we were going to have something else. And then making it unsatisfying, as much as to say that you have to follow up the next day with 2 home cooked meals, or you maybe go out and you've got to go for a walk the next day, or something that you maybe don't like doing. But it's all about just making it as hard as possible for you to follow up on that habit. Okay. So again, if anybody has any questions, pop them in into the chat there, and I will get to them towards the end if you want to know a little bit more about it. Habit stacking is, I think, a really effective way of developing good habits as well. And again, this is in a concept from Atomic Habits. And it's a very interesting way, if you're not comfortable bringing something completely new into your life. And I encourage you to follow up kind of more on these kind of these methods, these strategies to build better habits, because habit stacking is essentially taking something that you're doing already and adding another habit on top of it. Okay, so for instance, just there's maybe some people would have, when they brush their teeth, they will do 10 press ups. Now, I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm just thinking of a client of mine. He habit stacked with things like this. So, you take something that you do every single day, regardless, and you add something else on top of it. Okay, you add a healthier or a habit that you want to form in with it as well. So, for some people, maybe it's every time I pour my coffee first thing in the morning, I'll meditate for 1 minute, or I'll practice mindfulness for 1 minute. And we're going to be talking about that towards the end of this workshop. But it's things like this, or it's after I take off my work shoes or your work clothes, you'll change straight away into your workout clothes. So instead of some people come home, they take off their work shoes, might put on some pajamas or some comfy pants, something like that. Instead of doing that, they change, because they're taking off their work clothes, they change straight into their gym clothes. And that then will actually be more of a prompt and more of a cue to go to the gym or go work out or go for a walk. And for other people, it can be practicing kind of gratitude. So as they sit down to dinner, they'll take a moment and they'll say one thing that they're grateful for, or something like that. Again, if you want to develop the habit of reading at nighttime, it will be after I take my supplements at night, I'll read for 30 minutes. So it's using things that you're doing already and adding a new habit on top of them. And the reason why habit stacking actually works so well is that your current habits have already been ingrained into your mind, into your behavior. You don't think about them, okay? And if you can link your new habits to that cycle, all right, that's already built into your brain, you're far more likely to stick at that new behavior. Now, if once you're happy and you're confident, you've tried a few of these things. So for instance, maybe it's you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is check your phone. Well, having a glass of water beside your bed can actually, use that as a prompt. So I'm only allowed to check my phone if I drink the water at the same time. And that's your healthier habit if you're trying to get more water in through the day. So there's a few small ones you can try like that. And then once you've mastered kind of that basic structure, you can begin to create much larger stacks and you chain them all together then, all right? So that'll actually kind of allow you, there's a natural momentum that will come with this habit stacking and this habit building. So you could have one that it's, pour your morning coffee, practice mindfulness for a minute. And then after you've done that, you're going to write your to-do list for the day. All right. So then you bring them together. After you write your to-do list, then maybe you'll just immediately do the first task on that. Okay. Or if you think about stuff in the evening time, you can finish eating dinner and then instead of just bringing over your plate to the worktop, bring it over and put it straight into the dishwasher. And then as soon as you got it in the dishwasher, you wipe down the counter. And then as soon as you wipe down the counter, you maybe prepare breakfast, have your breakfast kind of laid out for the next day. So getting into those habits, you kind of use them to push the next one on. I suppose you can definitely introduce new behaviors in the middle of current routines as well. Because if you just think of your day, and if everybody just takes a minute to think of it now, think of your routine that you're currently in right now. Think of the problem areas of it, and then think of new things that you should introduce, but you just don't feel like you've time, or you don't feel like you're able to, or you just keep forgetting. Okay. A big one would be, say if you wake up in the morning and you have a shower and get changed, you have something, and maybe you want to start reading more at nighttime. You maybe get in the habit of making your bed and leaving your book on your pillow, because then when you get to bed that night, you'll have to remove the book, and that's going to be your cue to read. Like, there's a lot of different things that you can do that are very, very, again, they seem very small, they seem very insignificant, but they have very good cumulative effects when they're done day in, day out. So I just kind of want to highlight that when you are trying to build new habits, you don't have to overhaul anything. You can really take your current routine and just add small little things in that very, very good for us in the long run, okay? And then I'm not talking just about physical health, I'm talking about our mental health in the long run as well. Like that reading at nighttime can be a very, very good sleep aid. for some people. So if you find it difficulty sleeping or difficult to getting off to sleep, I definitely recommend trying to read something not too exciting, but reading that at nighttime. But if you find that you always just forget to read, having that little prompt of like your book and your pillow and getting into that habit can have that knock-on effect. So it is all about the small actions that we do. And a couple of more examples of removing barriers, and these are ones that I showed in week 1 as well. So talking about snacking, so if you have, if you want to get into the habit of better snacking, having the obvious one of removing the less healthy snacks from the house and bringing in more healthy snacks is a big one, or planning your snacks for the day. Again, if your hydration is a habit that you want to improve on, keeping a glass of water beside you throughout the day, or having a bottle of water in the rooms in your house or in your car and work or whatever it is very, very important. So, the first thing to say to someone is that if you're trying to drink more water, well, where do you get your water in your house, or how do you drink your water through the day? And more often than not, people tell me, oh, I don't keep a glass of water beside my bed, or I don't keep a glass of water beside my desk. And that's a barrier straight away. Again, talking about opting for takeaways over cooking, a behavior change, you'd be planning out your meals, ensuring that you're comfortable with recipes as well, and that you have the ingredients to cook them. The last point on this topic before I move on to the next one, guys, is systems and goals. So habits, people often come to me and they have different goals, either, like I said, to eat healthily or to lose weight or improve performance, things like that. And we'll go into their daily habits. But more often than not, when I talk to them about goals, their goals are either very vague or they don't really know why they have them. So I'm going to give you an example of one that I get from a lot of my weight loss clients. And a lot of my clients will come to me, and it doesn't matter what gender they are, what age they are, what height they are, or what weight they are. They'll often tell me that they want to lose 2 stone. I have no idea where this number's come from, but over the years and many, many, many clients, I've heard this 2 stone countless times. And I mean, everyone from, quite, big men to even some quite small women have said this number to me. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why people have 2 stones stuck in their heads, but they do. So I often talk about SMART goals when it comes around to this 2 stone measurement, and because I ask why, and once we get hashed down into this to this SMART goal algorithm, it often comes out that the 2 stone isn't actually like a kind of a feasible goal for them. Okay, so when you're trying to achieve anything, like if your goal is weight loss, straight away you need to go specifically, what do you want to do? Do you want to lose weight? And then talking about why do you want to lose weight? Getting into understanding the values behind the reason for the weight loss, okay? Then we talk about measurable. Well, how do you know when you've reached it, okay? So how do you know when you've lost weight? How will you know? Because people can lose weight and they can keep losing weight, but they don't know, what the weight loss goal was, what the specific one was. So, and I'm talking about measurable in terms of like, do they want to fit into a certain clothes? Do they want to look like a certain photo they did a few years ago? Do they want to lose a specific number, like this 2 stone? Is that an appropriate number? And that kind of moves us on to A. Is it in your power to accomplish that? Is it achievable? Is it real? And then, so if someone comes to me with a weight loss goal, but they don't know anything about food and they don't do any exercise, you have to ask them, well, is that achievable for you? Is this specific measurable goal achievable in your reach? Realistic. So can you realistically achieve your goal? All right. Is it within your capacity to achieve it? Is it something that is healthy for you? Is it something that you should actually do, or you want, or do you just think you want it? And then putting a time on it. So if your 2021 goal is to lose weight, well, when's going to happen? What is your end date? Is there an end date? Should there be an end date? So that's just kind of one example, and weight loss is just one of many health and wellness goals that people can have. And I'm not saying that should be a goal or anything, but it's just to be aware that when you're sitting down trying to make change, you'll have systems and goals. So your goals, will be the thing you want to get to, but the system is what is going to get you there. Okay, so your daily systems are your daily habits. So they're all interlinked and they all work together. So it's just to be, when you need to be specific when you want to achieve something, when you want to change something, and when you want to make a a health and wellness change in your life as well. So guys, I want to move on to stress now. It's second topic for this evening, okay? I think stress is something that we're all aware of. I'm sure we've all experienced it in some way or another. It's not just work-based, it can be family-based, lifestyle-based, environment-based. And it's something that we all need to be, for our health and wellness, we all need to be so aware of the aspects of it and the basis of it and how to help it as well. So just going to cover the basics. The human body, it responds to different things, to stimulus, and that provokes stress. Okay, so stress can be good and bad, right? So exercise, that's stress on the body. A big workload, stress on the body. You know, a death in the family, that's stress on the body. All right, so and what happens here is that it basically, it's our body's response to stress, and it activates the nervous system and specific hormones within our bodies. Right now, the hormone, I'm going to talk about it in a detail in a couple of slides, but essentially it speeds up our heart rate, our breathing rate, blood pressure, and our metabolism as well. Now, the reason why this happens, the reason why we have these physical changes, is basically to prepare you to react really quickly and handle the pressure of a moment. So it's known as the stress response, or it's the flight or fight response. All right, so if you think about us, 15,000 years ago out in the savannah, and we were, hunting wildebeest or whatever it is, when we were hunter-gatherers, we needed this really, really quick response in case something attacked us, or we needed to run away, or we needed to fight something. Now, unfortunately, we actually haven't changed a huge amount, or our body's reactions haven't changed a huge amount in those thousands of years. But we don't need it as much. Like, we're not hunting wildebeest or, running away from lions anymore, but we still have those reactions in our body. We still have these really, really, really quick stress responses. And like I said, it does improve our ability to perform well under pressure. And we cannot avoid stress entirely. And because of that, we need to manage it correctly. And it's not something that stress should never become debilitating. And that's the issue. A lot of people will put up with debilitating stress, and that's not healthy, okay? A certain level, like I said, a certain level of stress, it can be healthy, it can be in terms of motivation and performance, but it should not stop you from, being productive and being happy as well. This is the hormone I just spoke about, cortisol. I just wanted to show you kind of, essentially, I'll just put my laser pointer on here. It's released by our adrenal glands, and these are glands, they're little triangle shaped ones at the top of our kidneys. It's really important, like we said, it's really important for helping our body deal with stressful situations, and because our brain does trigger its release in response to loads of different kinds of stress, and it works in several areas of our body, controls our mood, motivation, and different emotions like fear and things like that. So this is the hormone that's responsible for it. Okay, now, so it plays a part, like I said, it plays so many different roles in our bodies. Okay, so it's involved in our substrate use. So when I say substrate, I mean our carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So it manages how our bodies use them. It reduces inflammation. It helps regulate our blood pressure, and it can regulate blood glucose as well. Okay, so the release of glucose into our system, things like that. It controls how we sleep, so our sleep-wake cycle. So it does boost energy. Okay, so if you get into a stressful situation, you need to do something, you do have a lot of energy there, but we need to restore the balance afterwards. Okay, and the body's stress response system, it's self-limiting. So like, once that perceived threat has passed, so whatever it was, the hormone levels, they should return to normal. And we release adrenaline and things like that in response as well. So they should drop. Okay, your heart rate should come back down, the blood pressure should return to normal, return to that baseline levels, and then the rest of our systems, they resume their regular activities. However, the problem is that when the stressors are always present, so when you're under constant stress and you feel under constant attack. Now, I don't mean physical attack from people, I just mean that's our body's response. The body's getting ready for something, so you're constantly under stress. That fight or flight reaction, that stays turned on. Okay, and that's not what we want, because the long-term activation of that stress response system, okay, and the overexposure to cortisol and other stress hormones like adrenaline, things like that, that can disrupt your body's processes. Okay, now that's where you get put at risk then of health problems. So again, it's a cumulative effect. It's not just being under stress once, because we've all been there. We've all been under stress at some time or other, some situation or another. But it's when it's constantly turned on for whatever reason, okay, that's when you put at risk of health problems. So things like, that's when we start seeing anxiety, depression, digestive problems, okay, so both physical and emotional, headaches, heart disease, sleep problems. So it's really important that we learn to actually cope with our stress. So just to look out for signs of stress. So like I said, stress isn't straightforward. It's not just, oh, I'm under stress and that's it. We've got to look at physical. We look at, like we said there, headaches, tight muscles. We've got twitches, fatigue, skin irritation. So, you know, some people come out in a rash. I definitely know I've friends that actually, when they drink, they get a rash, and that's a stress response. That's the body's stress response to alcohol. Okay, breathlessness can be another one. Now we kind of move on to more emotional and mind, like worrying, kind of muddled thinking, indecisiveness, nightmares is a big one for people that are stressed, making kind of hasty decisions or even an impaired judgment as well, and negativity as well. And then behaviors that we might see. So even like down to loss of appetite, being accident prone, a low libido would be another one. Maybe increased alcohol, drug or cigarette consumption, insomnia, so not sleeping at all, then being very restful. And then the emotions as well. Okay, so we have our emotional response. So it can be loss of confidence. Irritability is a massive one, and I think that's probably an obvious one, where someone's stressed out, don't talk to them, don't go near them, you're walking on eggshells. That's probably the most obvious sign that people will see. But it's really important to see, to realize that stress can manifest its way or itself in so many different ways, and to be aware of them. So talking about stress management, okay, so big thing is understanding your stress. All right, like I said, it can be different for everybody, and understanding the different signs of it can be better prepared for it. Identifying your stress sources, huge one. Don't know you out, you're not going to be able to manage it. Okay, so it can be anything: work, family, can be a change in lifestyle, anything at all. But writing them down can be a big help. Okay, looking at stress signals. All right, so again, we all stress very, very differently. So what's your individual symptoms? Kind of what's your internal alarm bells that you know that you're getting stressed? Your stress strategies. So you should have a stress strategy, which is good because we're talking about mindfulness in a couple of slides. But you should have a go-to tactic for calming down. Now, the thing is, like we said at the start of the workshop, you could have kind of negative or, I suppose, less healthy stress management, maybe overeating, maybe smoking, drinking, use of drugs, something like that. Maybe you get quite angry. So these are not good things to help relieve stress. So we need to work on more positive ones. And that's when we come in the healthy stress management coming in, which we'll speak about. Now, exercise is a great one as well. But mindfulness is one we're going to focus on tonight. You have to make self-care a priority. This isn't something that we just deal with. You just don't manage stress in terms of like, oh, that's fine, I'll get on with it. It's not healthy just to try and get on with stress. You need to address it. You need to appreciate that it's there. And you have to put your well-being first. All right. Now that it might feel even a bit selfish to start. You can't, I suppose, help anyone else around you if you're under constant stress yourself. So you need to make sure that you're not overlooked. Okay. Asking for support is a big one. So if you do feel like your stress is getting out of hand, please talk to somebody. There's a lot of different, I suppose, resources out there, but even reaching out to a family member or friend, first of all. But there's definitely a lot of healthcare and healthcare professionals that can help with that as well. Maintaining healthy relationships, a big one. Family can make you or break you, and the same with a relationship with another half. So be aware that you should maintain healthy relationships. And if you feel like you're in an unhealthy relationship, speaking to somebody about that is very important. Another one, second last one, getting the right amount of sleep. I have been harping on about sleep for 2 weeks now, or this is the third week. It's also very, very important for our mental health and for our stress management. Please prioritize your sleep. If you want to know more about sleep, you can check out the last 2 workshops, which I spoke about lots about sleep as well. Exercising as well, like I said, it's a really, really good stress management technique, but make sure you don't over exercise as well, because that is another type of stress on your body, okay? And that will be the appropriate amount of exercise for you will completely depend on yourself. It's very, very individualized, but do prioritize getting out for walks or runs or whatever it is that works for you to help clear your head. Mindfulness now, folks. This is, we talked about this, we touched on this in week 1. I introduced the topic. When I try and talk to my clients about mindfulness, I do get a few kind of scoffs, because a lot of people feel it's quite hippy dippy, you know, it's a bit airy fairy. But honestly, if I can just, I'm going to talk about it for 10 minutes now, and if I can just get some kind of a buy-in from you all about how this is a very good technique to manage stress and just kind of help with your daily mental health, and your I suppose making it a daily mental health task that we all should be looking after our mental health a little bit better. But essentially, just to give you the definition of it, mindfulness essentially it's the practice of paying attention to whatever is happening in the present moment and experiencing it, and you experience it without judgment. And I mean that as such as that you're not overthinking about what's happening, okay? That you're just accepting whatever it is happening around you, and your mind's not running a mile a minute thinking about, you know, what are you cooking the kids for dinner tonight, or, you know, what happened in the latest episode of Judge Judy or something like that. That you're just within the moment. A really good, you know, we spend a lot of our time on autopilot, all right, that we're just going from one end to the day, one end of the day to the next, and not really paying attention to anything in between. A really good example is this: have you ever driven anywhere and you're not actually able to really recall the details of the journey? Maybe it's a journey that you take twice a day, every single day, for years, or maybe it's a route that you travel a lot, and suddenly you'll be there and you won't have really understood anything that went on between, or you didn't really make any conscious decisions anywhere in between. That's when you're on autopilot, okay? Now that autopilot like sensation, it's a lack of awareness. And many of us experience it a lot of our lives and different parts of our lives, okay? We can become very easily distracted by what's kind of going on around us, or by our own thoughts, okay? And when we are on autopilot, you know, our automatic thoughts and feelings, they can sometimes trigger unhelpful thoughts, and may even lead us kind of reacting badly to things as well. But when we practice mindfulness, it's about kind of being fully present in the moment, all right? So you're bringing your awareness to what you're directly experiencing, and you're doing so via your senses, all right? Your state of mind, your thoughts, and your emotions. So it's like, if you find that sometimes you have a knee-jerk reaction to something, maybe it's bad news, or, you know, a good one would be if you're driving in the car and someone cuts you off and you beep the horn straight away and, you know, let a few expletives out. Taking a second in between that just to be a little bit more mindful about the situation will stop that knee-jerk reaction. And that's the idea. It's one of the ideas behind mindfulness. And when it comes with stress and things like that, so when we can bring in mindfulness, we can kind of reduce our running thoughts. So it kind of, if you find that you kind of get overwhelmed, or that your mind runs away with you sometimes, being mindful can help with that. Very good at reducing stress. It kind of helps your memory, cognitive function, a lot of clarity as well. This is what's reported from it, and reducing anxiety and depression. Okay, so a good one that I'm sure you've probably all noticed that, you know, we've had an increase in sea swimming since lockdown, and I am one of those people that started swimming every day in the sea, and there's a group of us that would do it, and it seems to increase every week. And the more people I talk to and see on Instagram or Facebook, there seems to be a lot of people I know, a lot of friends of mine. And although we're all within our 5K and we're all different areas of the county and country, everybody has taken to this. And you know, we've talked at length about why. What is it about getting in the sea that we find, you know, something that we want to keep doing over and over and over again, even though it's very, very uncomfortable. And we came to the conclusion that it's a part of mindfulness, because when you're in the sea, you can't really think about anything else bar the cold. It's all whatever was stressing you out before you get in, or whatever you're overthinking, or possibly causing you worry, anxiety. This kind of moment of being quite mindful kind of refreshes and reinvigorates you. And that's the idea behind mindfulness, that it takes you away from maybe some negative thoughts that you're having, or perhaps something that you're worrying about or stressing about, and helps you get some clarity on it. Okay. So again, it's something that I'm going to introduce 3 kind of basic exercises here, and I'm just at the end now. So one that we talked about in the first week, and that's belly breathing exercises. So deep breathing, I'm sure if you've heard of deep breathing before, this is essentially it. So holding in a deep breath, belly breathing. If you all put your hand on your stomach right now, listen to me. When you breathe in, and I'm talking mile a minute here, so I won't be able to do it, but when you breathe, take a deep breath in, you should feel your stomach move. You shouldn't feel it in your chest, you should feel it in your stomach. So just there under your sternum, okay? You get a big deep breath in, you hold it 3 seconds, and you let it out. So you do a big exhale. If you even do that for 1 minute a day, that can have positive effects on your stress levels, on your blood pressure, on your heart rate, everything. And doing that, like we said, maybe using that habit stack where after you have your morning coffee or your morning tea, you do 1 minute of this mindful task. And within that task, you're thinking about your breathing, you're thinking about your inhale, you're holding your exhale, and you forget about everything else around you. You forget about the meeting you have at 9:30. You forget about, the worry that you might have something to cook for dinner that night, or what am I going to have for dinner, whatever small little nonsense that's in your head, that you're fretting about unnecessarily. And that's what we do, because we live such busy lives that we never take a minute to slow down. Honestly, this is just for 1 minute doing this, and maybe you'll build it up to 4 or 5. But it's about being present in that moment and just, calming yourself and just not thinking about all the little things that are rushing in your head. Another one would be just the worry window. If like that, you do suffer a little bit with anxiety, a little bit with worry, especially we've had an absolute mad year. It's, I basically spent the first 3 months of this lockdown doing seminars like this around stress and mindfulness and different corporations, because people are under a lot of stress, and we still are. So these things can be really helpful if you're dealing with small daily anxieties, which we all are, because it's been a very stressful year, and it's hard to see when it will be over and when we will return to normality. It will come eventually, but these kind of things are very good for working on small anxieties and worries. So the worry window essentially is, if you find yourself constantly anxious throughout the day or worried about a certain thing, take 20 minutes, okay, per day for 1 week, and reflect on the things that you're worrying about. So sit down, literally let yourself worry. Think about all the things that are on your mind that you're worried about. Write them down on a piece of paper, okay? Just 20 minutes. That's your worry window, all right? Now, at the end of the week, take your list and review it. Is there a pattern? Are you worrying about the same things every day? Are these things within your control, okay? Now, the idea is that if you start thinking about these things outside of your worry window, you basically tell yourself, I'm going to not think about this now. This is going to come into my worry window time. And then that, you've allowed yourself that period of time to actually worry about it, and it should help calm it, okay? Now, sit down and try and do it for a second week. And the more you practice, the better you're going to be able to reduce your worries throughout the day and understand the stuff that you can control versus stuff that you can't, all right? And do it for a third and a fourth if needs be. When you are worrying about the unknown or situations that you just have no control over, it's tasks like this that can kind of, I suppose, help you become more at ease with the unknown. And it can help you, I suppose, be more connected with your present situation, which is what you need to focus on. The idea is that you kind of worries about what might happen rather than what's actually happening now. So you need to kind of refocus yourself on the present, because worrying usually comes with stuff in the future. The last one before we finish up is 5 cents exercise. All right. So this is a very good one if you potentially suffer with anxiety, or you get overwhelmed, or you find your mind racing. or even if you're susceptible to panic attacks, this is a very, very good exercise. Okay. Now, if you're someone that this doesn't affect, do take note of it, because you may be able to help someone in the future if they do end up suffering a panic attack or get over overly anxious in your presence. Okay, so this is called the 5 senses. So you just use your hand for it. Okay, and this actually mindfulness quickly, literally in any situation. All you need to do is notice something that you're experiencing with your 5 senses. So you start with your kind of thumb, and that's 5 things that you can see. So you look around, you bring your attention to 5 things you can see, anything at all. Just pick 5 things in your head. The next one is then 4 things that you can feel. So it could be your jumper, it could be the wind, your hair, whatever it is. You just have to pick 4 things that you can feel. Now it's 3 things then that you can hear. Again, just pay attention. You got to stop, slow down. What are 3 different things that I can hear right now? 2 things you can smell. So like that, if you can smell the air, you can smell your jumper, your hair, your hand, whatever it is around you. And then what can you taste in your mouth? What is that specific taste that you can taste in your mouth right now? Again, what it does is that it's a quick and it's very easy. It's quick. It's very easy exercise to bring you to a very mindful state very quickly. Okay, so that's if you get overwhelmed in a situation and you get with anxiety or panic, tuning into your 5 senses immediately can bring you back to that moment very, very quickly. It's a very, very useful tool, and one that slides are catching up here, one that can be used straight away. So folks, I just want to recap. That's what we covered tonight. I'm absolutely chuffed at myself because I only went over by 4 minutes. If you're here the last couple of workshops, you see that I covered quite a lot and we went over a little bit, but I'm within here. So why they're so important, taking positive actionable steps to build healthier habits, breaking unhealthy ones. Stress, why we should pay attention to it, why we need to be more aware of the effects of too much cortisol production, paying attention to the signs of stress and the many forms it takes, and how being present in the moment can reduce our stress levels, and then those mindfulness exercises. So folks, if you have questions, I do see there's some come in here, so I'm going to fly through them now, and then I'll pull up the ones that you did ask in the sign-up form as well. Let me see here. I see, oh, brilliant, Deirdre, you were putting in all of your different habits, which is great. So hopefully that you'll be able to introduce some of the ones that I recommended there. Neil's asked me any tips for stopping fruit flies. I'm not sure, Neil. That one might be one to Google. It's a bit out of my remit, but that could be an issue, I understand. Let me see here. Fidel may agree with 2 stone thing. Thank you very much. And Steve saying sleep is the #1 most important stress manager, in my opinion. It's the foundation of everything else. I completely agree with you, Stephen. And Stephen started the show cold showers and he finds himself less stressed at work, which is brilliant. I'm just going to jump into the questions from the sign-up form now, guys. If anybody does have any other ones, do let me know. So Kira Redden was asking, what type of mindfulness should be used when working from home? So I kind of covered those with the three exercises there. And Barbara's asking, tried mindfulness a few times. How do I develop the discipline to make it a regular habit? Okay, so we could use that habit stacking that we talked about there, Barbara. So that's, we'd have the habit stack there that would help. Trina's asking how to be focused on the here and now and not be caught thinking too much in the future. So great that those exercises will work for you as well. Avie's asking about quick snacks to make. I would have covered that in week 1, Avie. So Stephen would have shared the link there as well to that. Jolene's asking how to help someone who labels food as good as bad, associates a lot of food with guilt, or excuse me, a lot of guilt with food choices. I would have covered that in week 1 as well, Jolene. We did talk about kind of referring to more as nutritious and less nutritious, we'll say, but that was in week 1 if you want to check that out. Pam was asking how to break old habits and make new ones. So again, we covered that. Sophie's asking about reducing the craving for sugar. So really, Sophie, be about building up a better kind of routine with your food intake. So again, I'd refer you back to week 1 workshop for that. Orla's asking a good question here. Started on a healthy eating plan, but I'm struggling to hit the calories. Is that bad? Should I be trying to hit the target? I can't say because I don't know what plan you're on, Orla, but don't force yourself if you're not hungry to overeat either, okay? Your body's very good at telling you when it's full. We have to kind of tune in more to that. Mary's asking about how to develop healthy eating habits, so we covered that there. Noel's asking a really good question. What foods have slow release in protein that would be suitable to eat before bed? So Noel, if you're very tuned in with your protein intake, I'd recommend a casein protein because it forms a little kind of globulus in our stomach, and it's a bit longer to digest. So milk proteins would be good, yogurt before bed, or even if you wanted to supplement, it would be a casein protein powder you go for. Kevin saying addicted to chocolate and snacks after 8 and craving 24/7. If you want, we did cover a lot about healthy eating and building healthy food habits in week 1, Kevin. So I definitely want to refer you back to the week 1 workshop. Claire saying, what's the best thing for breakfast to lose weight? It doesn't come down to any one meal, Claire. It will come down to your overall calorie intake. But in weeks 1 and 2 in the workshops, I showed slides on how to build a balanced breakfast. A nice little infograph, a couple of infographics on that if you want to check it out, or you can check it out on my Instagram either. Catherine's asking, is vitamin D good to take for our immune systems? Absolutely. Catherine, again, talked about in great length about this the last couple of weeks. We should be taking a vitamin D tablet from Halloween to Paddy's Day in Ireland because we just don't get enough sun, and it's incredibly important to keep us healthy. Let me see here. Helena's asking tips for nutrition for women 50 plus and doing physical activity. I did a whole workshop on it last week, Helena. Again, Stephen shared that link with you all if you want to check it out. Yvonne's asking, are sweet potatoes carbs higher than a normal spud? No, there's very, very little difference between sweet potatoes and potatoes, people. Pretty much the vitamin A content is the real significant difference. Sweet potatoes have higher vitamin A, but spuds are super healthy for us. Don't knock the spud because it's full of vitamin C, potassium. It's a food with the most highest satiety in our diet, so it means that it keeps us feeling fuller for longer. Now, obviously, if you add a load of butter, cream, things like that, it will up the calories in it, but there's nothing wrong with spuds. Very healthy for us. Mary's looking for a healthy eating recipe. I know Stephen has shared the link to my ebook. I have a recipe ebook to help with that. Lily's asking, what's mindfulness? Hopefully we covered that for you now. Lorraine's asking, what time should your last meal be at? There's no real end time, Lorraine. It's all what suits you. There's no real issue in eating late at night if it doesn't disrupt your sleep. Stephen asking a really good question here. Any advice for prioritizing the process over the outcome with regards to weight and nutrition? I am all about the process, Stephen. I'm all about the habits, the daily habits, and the system to get you to the goals. I'm not, an outcome, or I would always focus on a healthy process to do something rather than anything else. You could lose weight very, very quickly, but have the wrong process to do it. Okay, let me go back to what people were asking. Okay, Stephen's telling me that white wine is good for catching fruit flies. Brilliant. I think Deirdre's asking, is beer bad? Everything in moderation there. Nicholas just saying, just to reiterate, mindfulness, the Headspace app was invaluable for creating good bedtime meditation for anxiety. So actually, that's a really good one. Thank you so much, Nicola. I meant to actually say that you can download at the Headspace app. Now, it is a paid app, but I know you can get a lot of stuff for free on it, and that will prompt you to do your mindfulness every day. Okay, so that's actually a really, really good point. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Nicola. A lot of people saying thank you very much for joining me, everybody. Sorry, and that book recommendation I made at the start was Atomic Habits. It was brilliant. I can't recommend that book highly enough. It's all about the 1% change. It gives you kind of actionable about doing small things. About essentially what I've been saying throughout the habit building area. Soak your fruit in water with some vinegar for a few minutes, and this will keep the fruit flies away. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks, Anne. Deirdre's asking for breakfast, brown bread or white bread. We go with whole grain bread. That's what I would recommend. All whole grain carbs for the extra fiber and B vitamins. someone asked me for the book. It was called Atomic Habits, Atomic Habits, and it's by James Clear. Again, I really, really recommend it. I think it's a fantastic book, and I think it's a lot to take from it if you do want to build daily habits. Folks, if there's no other questions coming in there, thank you very much for your attention and for your time tonight. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks again to Owen and Stephen for having me in this week as part of the Winter Wellness workshops with Fingal. I really enjoy everyone's questions. They're brilliant. We will be running again, I think, Owen, in 2 weeks.
4th of February, yeah. So Owen's forming some good habits there. He's gone training. So he's on
Promise them I won't go
tonight. So Laura, thanks a million for coming tonight again. Really appreciate it. Really, really good. Really fascinating topic. And really, really insightful. Like Laura said, we're on again on the 4th of February. We're taking a break next week because our community sports hub is running a women in sports coaching masterclass. So if anyone's interested in that, you can come along to that as well. That's with Cliona Foley from Off the Bench podcast is going to be in conversation with Cliona O'Connor from the Dublin Athletic Performance Coach. So yeah, really good. If you're interested in that, come along. You'll find the registration on our social media sites as well. But again, big thanks to Laura. If you haven't checked out Laura's website, do check it out because there's loads of really good tips on it. Loads of really interesting, a lot of interesting recipes as well. I saw Brussels sprouts in a pasta bake. I think now we'll have to think about that one. But no, Laura, thanks a million, and we'll hopefully see everyone again in 2 weeks' time. So thank you. Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time.